Hello, everybody. Welcome to Spiritual Awakening 101. My name is Reverend Jerry Yaakov, and I'm your host. I'm also a student and teacher of metaphysics. Today, we're going to be reading again from the Science of Mind magazine. This is the November 2020 edition, and there's an article in here, and it's entitled GAIN, Gain, Resilience and Reduce Stress, a 3-minute mindfulness practice. And it's by Greg Hammer, MD. And Dr. Hammer writes that there are four core pillars of resilience: gratitude, acceptance, intention, and non-judgment. And then the rest of the article goes more deeply into each of those four: gratitude, acceptance, intention, and non-judgment. So let's read a little bit from each and discuss them. I think it's very helpful, and it fits in with our metaphysical practice of mindfulness, truthfulness, self-awakening, and awareness. Number one is gratitude. In GAIN, the word GAIN is the acronym. G stands for gratitude. We all have much to be grateful for. Let's consider how much better off most of us are than our ancestors were 100 years ago. It goes on then to describe how little they had communication, no internet, no FaceTime with friends and family, poor sanitation, far too few hospital beds, and other essentials to manage during that influenza pandemic of 1918. And he concludes in the gratitude section by saying, as bad as things are, they could be much worse. We do indeed have reasons to be grateful. Well, of course, on the medical front and on the pandemic front that we're all experiencing, there are many aspects that can lead us to creative spiritual thinking about gratitude. I just received a phone call from my son, and he has several children. His eldest daughter and his middle son are probably now testing positive. They're waiting for the results of the tests. But, he says they're young and they'll be fine. He's not concerned about them. So here's an attitude of gratitude from my son. I concur. I think there's always an attitude of gratitude that can be surfaced within the depths of our spiritual minds. We need to be mindful. Look within, and the Holy Spirit, the mind of God, whether you call it Christ or Buddha, Yahweh, whatever your name for it, it is within your mind as a light of love. It's a loving experience, a loving energy, and it can manifest at the conscious level of our minds as gratitude. So this is something we want to encourage. We want to practice. How grateful can I be? How optimistic can I be? Look within. The source of optimism and gratitude is within you. It's not something outside of you. We bring the optimism and gratitude, the gratitude with a G, out into the circumstances that we perceive. We don't necessarily look to the circumstances to instill optimism and gratitude within us. We are self-generating, creative beings. Our minds are creative. We want to practice that and identify as that. We're cause, not effect. The world we see outside of ourselves is effect, that's for sure. But what we think with our minds, with our Holy Spirit minds, with our God consciousness, then is projected and transmitted out onto the visual or perceptive plane, which is the effect. But all of our practice is on a causative level. This gives us great pause for hope, optimism. I can always change my attitude. And an improved attitude always leads to healing and recovery. Always. Now, it may not be an immediate experience, although most of the time it's an upliftment of our conscious contact with God. And that is joyful and happiness. But as far as the outside effects being changed, that may take what we consider to be time. And that's because we have invested so much of our time unwisely in negative thinking of the ego part of our minds. Now we're shifting to the God consciousness part of our minds, which is always optimistic and gratitude filled. And so again, we shift, in a sense, the balance within our minds from an investment of negativity to one of positivity. And then inevitably, the law is that the outside circumstances, outside picture of our inside mind and thoughts will shift. That is a law. And it's the truth, because as a man thinketh, so is it done unto him through his outside thinking. His outside thoughts are manifested, they're demonstrated. Well, this is all well and good in our first identification for gain of resilience and to reduce stress is gratitude. Let's move on to the second one. Gain, the next letter is A for acceptance. He goes on to write, and this is Dr. Hammer, as the Serenity Prayer reminds us, we are all served to discern between those things we can and cannot change and accept the latter, those things that we can change. During this historically difficult time, there's much we cannot change. Let's open our hearts to the pain and suffering of others and ourselves and abide there, accepting these feelings. We did not create this pandemic, and we cannot cure it. We can only manage to remain safe by practicing social distancing, staying in touch with our loved ones by text or email, calls, and other means. So we're accepting a condition that is probably an outpicturing of race mind or collective unconsciousness. But again, the cause has to be within our minds, individually and collectively. And when we think negativity, when we think disparity between ourselves and others, when we are failing to truly commune with our higher power, which I call God and love, then outside pictures begin to become distorted and troublesome. A lack of well-being may manifest, dis-ease, pandemic, plague, sickness of the body. The body itself is an outside picture of the way we think in our minds. So I would suggest and challenge people to remember to concentrate the mind on the infinite beings that we are, the soul, the wellness. God created us as wellness. God created us in soulship with God. And so there is no illness there. There is no separation. There's nothing in that that lacks well-being. And we want to continue focusing on our wholeness and our holiness. And that eventually, again, will become part of the outside picture because we're shifting our thinking, which is the cause, and the outside picture is the effect. Well, that's something we can work on. And I invite you to look at what else you can accept. Things that you don't want to take on as guilt-inducing, but things that you want to accept as part of your life that is uplifting and optimistic. I'm well. I'm a holy child of God. I live forever as soul. My soul is here for a purpose. And I'm here to teach only love, for that is what I am. And I'm here to experience you as a loving soul. I can be so accepting of that. That fits in so beautifully with the gratitude and the acceptance, the GA in gain. Well, let's go on then to the next letter in gain, which is the letter I. This is intention. And of course, intention refers to the mind as well. What am I thinking? And by virtue of my constellation of thoughts, what are my belief systems? Are they uplifting? Am I intending good for myself and for others? This is something that's well within my power. Am I aligning my thinking and my beliefs with God consciousness in my mind, which is completely omnipotent and omniscient and only meant for good and is omnipresent? So it has to fill the space of the effect as well. And it'll begin showing up as healing, well-being, abundance, happiness, joy, bliss, all of that, because my thinking, my intention is commensurate with God's consciousness. Well, let's read here what the good Dr. Hammer has to say. He writes, our brains are wired with a negativity bias. Well, that would be the ego portion of our mind. We remember feelings and events that are sad and painful, while often losing track of wonderful moments in life. The good news is that we can use our intention to rewire our brains. I use the term mind and distinguish it from brain. A good example is the Three Good Things program initiated at Duke University. Simply thinking of three good things that happen during our day as we prepare for bed each evening improves our sleep and happiness. Three good things that happened during our day. You can just think of them and write them down, speak of them and include them in your nightly prayers. This practice is easy to embrace and requires no time. We simply need to be purposeful and diligent in embracing it regularly. Our brains remain plastic or changeable even during adulthood, contrary to what many may believe. We simply need to deploy our intention. This again is an intention alignment with God. So God's thoughts then are channeled through us. And of course there's a plasticity. Of course there's a change. It's inevitable because God's will is inevitable. Whatever God determines as God's will shall be done, shall be the effect, shall be the cause. And its effect is mighty, a healing, a miracle, well-being, dancing, clapping, singing, blissfulness. Be that in your mind, and you will be that in your heart. Be that in your mind, and you will be that in your body. Be that in your mind, and you will be that in your relationships. Be that in your mind, and you will be that in your prosperity and abundance. Be that in your mind, and you will be healthy and wise. Well, that is intention. And the fourth pillar in this gratitude, and it doesn't go along as an acronym, but it's non-judgment. Here's what he writes in summation. View the world and yourself with an open mind and heart. Adopt a sort of benevolent gain. View the world and yourself with an open mind. This would be a mind of Christ. And your heart, which is a mind of love. Adopt a sort of benevolent indifference. Don't look for trouble. Don't get enmeshed. Look for the benevolence in every situation, every relationship. There's benevolence there. There's good. There's love. There's a healing that's in store for each one of us. I know that at the deepest levels of my identity as Christ. I know that there's a healing and an abundance and an awakening. I and you will awaken to the Christ consciousness, and we will awaken to heaven, and we will no longer dream of hell. Hell is simply mistakes as to the identity and nature of things and people and places and myself. Hell is really a missing of the mark. Hell is an ideation of sin and guilt. I let that go. I'm not sinful and guilty. I'm sinless. God made me in that sinless light. I'm guiltless. I've been redeemed. All my mistakes have been corrected. My mistakes no longer trail me or are over my head like a dark cloud. I know the truth, and it has set me free. Love has cast down all guilt, all sinfulness, all fear. I don't project into the future anymore. I live in the moment, the present eternal moment of now. Everything is in perfect alignment, and it truly is whole, holy, and complete. Remember that in your moment-to-moment thinking, your intention, when you're practicing your resilience, when you're intending to reduce the stress that your wrong-mindedness brought upon yourself. Look to God and be grateful. Look to God and be fully accepting. Look to God and be intentional, mindful, discerning, non-judgmental. All the characteristics of Jesus, of the Buddha, of the Tao, Krishna, Yahweh, any name that you can, Allah, all are one, Lao Tzu, all your ascended masters, all your guardian angels. They're all in your mind and surround you in your circumstance. They're there to gently whisper in your ear, accept, accept, be grateful, be grateful, be intentional, be intentional, be non-judgmental, be non-judgmental. Join with others, join with others. Make amends if you've been wrong. Correct your mistakes willingly. Be vulnerable. Be vulnerable. Be humble. Be humble. All of this is wisdom. All of this raises us to new levels of Christ consciousness. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And of course, stress has no place in a mind that's clear, a mind that's peaceful, a mind that's filled with gratitude and acceptance, that is non-judgmental. That's so important, that fourth piece there, being non-judgmental. I love a brief explanation of the Tao. No blame. I love a brief explanation of the Christian following. Love thy neighbor. A brief explanation of the Buddha. The Buddha says, I'm awake. I'm awake in the light. I know the truth. You and I are one in an interbeing relationship. I value what's best for you as I value the same for me. I seek what's best for me and for you. And I love you, brother, neighbor. I'm not judgmental of you. Namaste. The spiritual being within me recognizes the spiritual being in you. Excuse me. Well, that's a lovely piece that Greg Hammer wrote. Uh, I want to go to also the daily readings. We have just about 5 minutes left or so. And I'll go to today's reading, which is November 20th. November 20th in the Science of Mind magazine. I just read this today earlier in my prayer and meditation time and practice. Here is for Friday, November 20th, a quote from Florence Scovel Shinn. Florence Shinn was a early advocate and teacher of New Thought. And she writes, intuition is a spiritual faculty and does not explain but simply points the way. So we get these intuitive thoughts, the origin of which is from God consciousness. The intuition points to the God consciousness within us. Be loving, be forgiving, be kind, compassionate. Thank you, Florence Scovel Shinn, for that quote. Intuition is a spiritual faculty. And develop your sense of intuition. Really look within and be open for that still small voice that guides you as intuition. There's a gentle nudging. There's a gentle voice of whispering. There's a gentle intuition that just seems to go beyond words, but it directs our feet, directs our eyes, directs our ears and our hands. We know what to do when we follow our God consciousness and intuition. Well, here's a brief quote from Ernest Holmes on this date, November 20th, 2020. Intuition is spirit knowing itself. Well, you and I are spirit. And when we tune into our intuition, we know ourselves as spirit. Intuition guides us first inwardly, and then secondarily, of course, it has us look out as to how we can be of help, how we can be of service. What is it that we have been demonstrating and manifesting that in some way has made the world and all our lives better? Intuition is our guideposts, the pole star. Intuition is spirit knowing itself. What should I do next? What is the next right thing? Oh, I know. I'm getting this intuition. I'm getting this sense of rightness. I always felt so wrong about what I was choosing, or confused, or insecure, unsure. But now I know that I know. And I know that I know that I know. Because intuition points to spirit, which is true self. Well, let's look at what the entry is for today based on those two affirmations of intuition. It says, over the past few years, some of my indigenous brothers and sisters have invited me to accompany them in one of their sacred ceremonies, referred to as a sweat lodge. Grateful to be part of their sacred Lakota tradition, I joined them. As we all entered the dome-shaped structure made out of mud and tree branches, we formed a circle around the pit in the middle. Once in the shelter, the elder called for the ancestors to join and be placed in the center of the pit. These ancestors were the rocks heated in the fire outside throughout the day. Once these ancestors joined us, the door was shut, and in the darkness, water was poured over these ancestors to create heat, still in the mind, and connect with the Creator. In this ceremony, we honored the Great Spirit and participated in a series of prayers. To respect their tradition, I don't want to share too much, but I do want to share what continued to come to me each ceremony. It is this, quote, as the conscious mind quiets down, we can connect to a deeper part within ourselves, the part of us that knows the way, that is the way. The answers we seek to the issues we face can be found within. And he concludes with these words, be still and know. And a final affirmation in this entry, I am open to receive intuitive insights that guide me to my highest self. I am open to intuitive insights that guide me to my highest self. And of course, the highest self is one with the Christ consciousness. So we will do what's right. We will do and think what's healing for ourselves and our brothers. All of this comes quite organically, quite naturally, as a sense of the God consciousness that created us. Ideas never leave their source. We are an idea in the mind of God, and that idea never leaves its source. And since we're ideas in the mind of God and creations of God, we're never very far. We're never separated. We're always in communion, and it's available for us to awaken to the communion state. I am one with my Creator. I am one in the Christ consciousness and the Buddha. I know the truth in Yahweh. The Shekhinah within me shines light, filled with light. I bless my neighbor, and I know that what's good for my neighbor is good for myself. I only want what blesses. I only want what uplifts. This is the truth. This is what has set us free. Well, this concludes our probably 242nd episode. Thank you to the NECAT Nation and Network for airing these shows. Thank you for those of you who catch the show either regularly or when you're able. Thank you to Dr. Candace Adelson, who edits these videos and gives me great insights and loves me, and I love her unconditionally. It's been a pleasure being with you, and I hope you've gotten something of value in this video. I'll see you next time. In the meantime, namaste, shalom, and peace. God bless.